Chapter 1. The Birth of the Demigod. Under the shimmering mantle of night, the ancient city of Thebes slumbered, unknowing that destiny stirred within its walls. The gods on Mount Olympus gazed down, for this night would birth a child who would shake the heavens themselves, a boy destined to become the mightiest hero of all Greece, Hercules. But glory is always shadowed by envy. Far above, Hera, queen of the gods, peered balefully through the mists of Olympus, her heart consumed by jealousy. Hercules was not her own, but the son of mighty Zeus, conceived in mortal flesh through his affair with Alcmene, the virtuous queen of Thebes. Hera, whose pride had been wounded so often by Zeus's many faithless escapades, vowed that this bastard child would suffer for his father's sins. Even before Hercules' birth, the gods' hands shaped his fate. On that fateful night, as Alcmene cried out in the pangs of childbirth, Zeus cloaked their house in golden light, hoping to shield mother and child from Hera's suspicion. But the goddess's rage was not so easily thwarted. She sent Eileithyia, goddess of childbirth, to prolong Alcmene's labor, twisting hours into days. The baby's birth became a battle of divine wills, a struggle that would be the first of many. Finally, after much suffering, the child sprang forth, bellowing with a voice that shook the pillars of the palace. Lightning arced across the sky. The midwives gasped, for the infant's skin shimmered with the sun's radiance, and his hands already grasped with the strength of 10 men. Amphitryon, the king of Thebes, gazed in awe at the boy, yet fear danced in his eyes, for he knew that to invite the gods' attention was to risk their wrath. Zeus, in one last act of defiance, whisked the newborn to Olympus as his mother lay exhausted. In the halls of immortals, the king of the gods presented his son before his brothers and sisters. The gods murmured amongst themselves. Some scorned the mortal blood in the boy, while others glimpsed greatness written in his destiny. But Hera was watching. Her emerald eyes narrowed to slits as she saw the child sleeping in his cradle of gold. In the silence of midnight, she slipped two enormous serpents, conjured from the deepest pits of Tartarus, into the nursery. Their scales gleamed with venom. They slid between golden bars, forked tongues tasting the air, eager to end Hercules' life before it could begin. The palace awoke to shrieks of terror. Servants rushed to the nursery, but what they found was not a scene of death, but of awe. The baby Hercules grasped each serpent by the neck, his chubby fists squeezing tighter than iron, until their bodies hung limp. The impossible strength of the child stunned all who witnessed it. Even Hera, hidden in the shadows, felt an unexpected chill of fear. Zeus, laughing thunderously, proclaimed the boy's name to the heavens, Heracles, glory of Hera. In secret, he hoped this mockery of a name might appease the goddess. From that day, young Hercules grew, watched by gods and men alike. His upbringing was one of constant tests. Chiron, the wise centaur, came from afar to tutor him in wrestling, archery, and the voice of reason. Amphitryon taught him leadership and honor. Alcmene wept at night, praying her son might escape the gods' feud. Yet everywhere they went, omens seemed to follow. Birds scattering from the trees, columns cracking at a child's grip, thunder rumbling on cloudless days. One afternoon, as Hercules wrestled a lion's cub in the palace garden, Hera gazed down with bitter envy. "I will not let this child find peace," she vowed, setting in motion a chain of events that would haunt Hercules all his life. But, for now, the boy was only dimly aware of his fate. In moments of quiet, he wondered about the strange longing in his heart, the feeling that he was meant for something more. Alone, beneath the night sky, he gazed up at the glittering stars, not knowing that even the greatest among the gods could envy the promise of his light. Chapter 2. Tragedy of Madness. The years unfolded swiftly for Hercules. From the very beginning, his strength and his struggles set him apart. Stories spread across Greece. Nobles envied his vigor, and peasants whispered prayers, hoping for his favor. But behind every feat of glory, little did he know, Hera's invisible hand guided his fate. Her vengeance simmered, patient as time itself. Hercules grew tall and broad-shouldered, towering over his peers by 14. His eyes were pools of stormy blue, his voice a rolling thunder. Under the watchful gaze of Amphitryon and Alcmene, Hercules mastered every art. He could shoot an arrow farther than any champion, outwrestle trained soldiers, and sing so sweetly that birds would alight at his feet. Yet, as his gifts blossomed, so too did his sense of isolation. Power, the old centaur Chiron warned, is only as noble as the purpose it serves. One autumn, news of a prowling lion reached Thebes. The beast had already slaughtered several herdsmen. While others cowered, Hercules, merely 16, set off alone and returned before dusk, carrying the massive carcass over his shoulders. Cheers erupted in the city. This, his first taste of heroism, would not be his last. But love and peace waited for even the strongest among men. On a spring morning, bursting with flowers, Hercules met Megara, a princess with laughter as radiant as sunlight. Where his strength battered doors, her gentleness unlocked hearts. They married amidst singing and celebration. The palace hummed with joy. For the first time, Hercules felt a simple, mortal happiness, a fleeting respite from the shadow he had known since birth. Together, they had children, each more precious than gold. Yet, far above, Hera watched, her jealousy sharpened by every smile that passed between them. In her palace of clouds, she whispered dark promises to the fates. At once, the air around Hercules began to feel heavier. Shadows crept into his dreams, visions of fire and screaming voices, his own hands slick with blood. The gods sent omens, the moon turning red, dogs howling at noon, a child's doll shattered in the courtyard. One twilight, Hera struck. As Hercules stood on his balcony, gazing at the distant purple mountains, a terrible chill gripped his mind. He heard his wife's laughter echo, impossibly far away, twisted by the spiteful magic of the Queen of Gods. Suddenly, the world became strange and hostile. The faces he loved warped into masks of malice. Even his children seemed like monstrous threats. Madness, in the hands of gods, is not confusion but a raging wildfire. Hercules' vision shrank to a blur of red. His monstrous strength, bound by compassion all his life, was unleashed without mercy. Servants screamed as furniture splintered, tapestries burned, marble pillars cracked. His children fled in terror, but in his delusion, Hercules saw only monsters. The palace was a ruin of pain, a scene of chaos that mortals would whisper about for centuries to come. The spell ended as suddenly as it had begun. Hercules awoke amid silence, his hands painted red, his family and household shattered around him. Smoke drifted through ruined halls. Echoes of grief rang in the empty corridors. Despair overcame him. Memory flooded back, merciless and clear. He tore at his hair, tore at his clothes, pleading for the gods to end his misery. "What have I done?" he cried, his voice lost in the wind. No answer came, only the lonely night and the weight of an unimaginable sin. Word of the tragedy swept through Greece like a black wind. The strong man, the hero, the mighty Hercules, killer of his own wife and children. Some pitied him, some spat his name. None realized the truth of Hera's curse, nor that Hercules was as much a victim as any mortal. Utterly broken, Hercules wandered into the wilderness. Night after night, he begged for death, for forgiveness, for escape. At last, desperate and nearly mad with grief, he found his way to Delphi, home of the oracle, whose wisdom was said to reach the ears of even Zeus himself. The journey was long, marked by hunger, madness, and the cold companionship of regret. Once, he thought to leap from a cliff. Only the memory of Megra's gentle smile drew him back. The oracle's sanctuary stood shrouded in fog and silence atop the sacred mountain. Hercules entered humbly, his great frame bent and gaunt. Candles flickered as the priestesses led him inside. At the heart of the cavern, the oracle herself, the Pythia, waited, her face hidden by veils. The air was heavy with incense and secrets. Kneeling, Hercules confessed awe. His voice broke with sorrow, but beneath his words ran a river of hope. Tell me, oracle, can such a crime be forgiven? Is there any redemption for a soul as lost as mine? The oracle's voice, deep and unearthly, echoed through the chamber. For 10 years you will know neither peace nor comfort. Only by enduring unthinkable trials and atoning through labor will you find release from this curse. Go to the court of King Eurystheus. In tyrants he will set the tasks you must complete. Through suffering, you will find absolution. Only by serving, not ruling, can the mighty become truly great. Hercules bowed his head, the oracle's words searing into his soul. In that moment, a seed of hope was planted amidst the ashes of his grief. The journey to redemption would be brutal, but it was a path one only a true hero could walk. As he strode from the cave, a glimmer of dawn brushed the horizon. The gods watched. Some pitied him, some merely waited, but Hercules, son of Zeus and Alcmene, bore the weight of both man and god. He would endure, or perish, in the attempt. Chapter 3: The Oracle's Command. The chill dawn found Hercules still kneeling outside the dark mouth of the Delphi cave. Exhausted and hollow, he stared at the winding road ahead, torn between dread and determination. The oracle's words echoed like the beat of a funeral drum in his mind. Go to King Eurystheus. Seek absolution in suffering. Redemption would demand surrender of pride, of will, of his very self. By noon, Hercules rose. He wrapped himself in a cloak of worn linen, the weight of his grief a silent companion. Before him lay the dusty road to Tiryns, seat of King Eurystheus, his cousin, and at Hera's insistence, the cowardly ruler, now tasked by the gods with guiding Hercules' penance. The journey was not heroic. Gone were the songs, the applause, the gleam of admiration in strangers' eyes. Hercules walked as any penitent, head bowed, while villagers whispered behind their shutters. The murderer walks among us. No one offered shelter. Some, remembering the tales of his wrath and strength, hurried their children inside. Yet, as his footsteps echoed through lonely valleys and sun-bleached towns, a seed of humility began to take root. Once, he had known only glory. Now, every small kindness, the gift of water, a stranger's loaf, felt like the greatest of blessings. Nights found him wrestling with memory, reliving the madness that had been forced upon him. Each time, he rose, bruised but unbowed, whispering the vow, I will make this right. I will be more than my pain. At the city gates of Tiryns, the guards recognized him instantly. It's Hercules, they whispered, some with fear, some with awed curiosity. He did not look the part of a hero. His hair was ragged, his tunic stained with travel, but his eyes held a fierce resolve that made even the bravest shrink away. He was brought before the court, where King Eurystheus sat beneath a gold-draped canopy. The king was a small man, with nervous hands and a voice like crackling reeds. Yet, at his side, an advisor reminded him that the command of Olympus itself backed his rule. When Hercules knelt, every head in the hall turned, hungry for the drama of gods and heroes laid low. Eurystheus cleared his throat. "Cousin," he began, struggling to mask his fear with royal pomp, "the oracle at Delphi has spoken. In her wisdom and, by Hera's will-12, labors are to be set before you. Only by fulfilling these mighty tasks will you atone for your deeds and be cleansed for a place among the living once more. Fail, and your name will be blotted from memory." Hercules bowed his head, voicing the words that would bound his fate to both man and Olympus. "I submit. Set me what tasks you will, O king. I will serve and endure." It is said that in that moment, Hera was listening. Her laughter, cold as winter, shook the heavens. She would pile hardship on his path, twist every trial, invent dangers that no man or demigod had ever faced. Eurystheus rattled off the first task, as if reciting an old story. "Your first labor, journey to the hills of Nemea, and slay the monstrous lion that hunts there. No blade nor arrow can pierce its hide. You must bring me its skin as proof." The courtiers gasped. "That beast has devoured entire companies of men," one exclaimed. But Hercules, unmoved, nodded, "I accept." Inside, his heart wavered, the enormity of his quest just beginning to crystallize. But if redemption meant facing monsters, so be it. He had already faced the beast inside himself. That night, Hercules wandered the empty corridors of the palace, every footstep a memory. What would become of him if he completed the labors? Or if he failed, would Megra's spirit wait for him on the other side? Would his children? Questions with no answers, so he set them aside, steadying himself for the road ahead. Before dawn, he visited the temple of Athena, seeking wisdom and strength. The goddess did not appear, but as he left, he found a lion's pelt nailed to the entrance, a blessing or a warning. He wore it for luck as he marched out of Tiryns, his club in hand, fate once more turning. The journey to Nemea was hard and silent. The forests grew thick, the ground strewn with bones of the lion's victims. Every villager he passed told the same tale. "It cannot be killed, stranger. It cannot be wounded. We have lost everything. Turn back, hero, before the dark swallows you, too." But Hercules pressed on, memories of his own darkness giving him strange empathy for the monster and its pain. At dusk, he reached the mouth of a cave north of Nemea. Blood stained the grass and rocks. An unnatural quiet lay over the land. No bird, no insect dared make a sound. Hercules knelt, tracing claw marks gouged into the earth. "Not all monsters are born," he murmured. "Some are made." He stoked a campfire and, for the first time in weeks, allowed himself to look at the stars. They seemed impossibly far, yet, he sensed, perhaps they watched him not with judgment, but hope. He would begin the labors alone, with nothing but mortal strength, a sense of honor battered but not broken, and a haunted heart determined to earn forgiveness. Chapter 4. Arrival at Tiryns. The journey from Nemea to Tiryns was neither short nor uneventful. Hercules' thoughts were heavy, a burden equal to the club slung across his broad back. He traveled in silence, the landscape shifting from wild, monster-haunted hills to the well-trodden roads and cultivated fields of Hercules. Tyrans rose from the earth like a fortress hewn by giants, towering stone walls, smoothed by centuries, ringed with sentries. As Hercules approached, common folk gathered, craning their necks for a glimpse of the man whom the bards called Son of Zeus, but whose crimes had become the subject of somber prayer. A hush seemed to descend as he strode through the city gate. Farmers and artisans dropped their tools, their gazes mixing reverence with wariness. Hercules bore their looks with humility. The sins that haunted his night hours were as heavy as the lion pelt he now wore. At the palace, the air was heavy with incense. Colorful frescoes of ancient heroes and gods chased one another around the walls, but none seemed to meet his stare. Guides led Hercules through echoing marble halls until, at last, he was announced before the throne of King Eurystheus was a slight man, with a nervous fidget and darting eyes. Every story echoed how he feared Hercules, though he hid it behind a mask of officialdom. He reclined on a gilded couch, ringed by advisors and As Hercules entered, the king stiffened imperceptibly, then forced a thin smile. "Welcome, Heracles," he began, using the hero's Greek name. His voice trembled ever so slightly, a detail not lost on those present. "Olympus itself has entrusted me to see to your penance. To be servant to tyrants is to serve the will of the gods and to atone, if such is possible, for what you have wrought." Hercules dropped to one knee. "I come not as a prince, nor even a free man," he replied, head bowed. "I place myself in your charge, O king. Command me, as the oracle decreed." Eurystheus seemed to relax. The advisors around him, less brave than their master, could not disguise their curiosity. Whispers rippled outwards as the king rose and approached Hercules, each step careful. He gestured to a captain, who unfurled a painted scroll depicting 12 terrifying beasts and impossible tasks. "These are the labors assigned to purge you of your stain," Eurystheus proclaimed, loud enough for all to hear. "They come not from me, but from the gods themselves. Fail, and your name is lost forever. Succeed, and perhaps even Olympus will forgive." As the scroll was shown, murmurs broke out. The monstrous lion, the Hydra, the sacred hind, the birds, the bourrich, rendered in vivid color and dreadful clarity. Hercules felt the challenge settle on his soul like a weight, but he squared his shoulders and nodded. "So be it." Eurystheus drew himself up, voice regaining strength. "Your first labor, the Nemean Lion. Already, rumors reach us of your intention. Slay the beast, and bring me its hide, that all may see your strength is not diminished by guilt." "I will return with the lion's skin," Hercules replied simply. The king's eyes flickered with fear. What if this terrifying cousin of his should turn on him? "And I command that you wait at the city gates upon your return," he added quickly, "lest you bring peril to my household." The audience was dismissed, and Hercules was led away to the guest quarters, a high, lonely chamber with a narrow window gazing toward distant mountains. That night, sleep eluded him. The palace rang with distant voices, laughter, and song. Hercules lay in silence, listening to the wind, wondering if such sounds would ever again warm his heart. As dawn crept across the sky, he rose and performed the rites his mother had taught him, an offering of bread and honey to the gods, a silent prayer for courage. When a palace servant brought a meager meal, Hercules thanked him humbly, remembering how, in other days, slaves would have hurried to grant his every wish. Even the mighty must learn to serve, he thought. Before leaving for Nemea, he crossed the palace courtyard. Onlookers watched, wary but fascinated children, peeking from behind columns, graybeards muttering about destiny and doom. A few brave souls approached with simple tokens, a cloak against the cold, a loaf of bread for the road. For the first time in months, Hercules felt a flicker of hope. At the city's edge, he met Iolos's faithful nephew, who had walked all night just to see him. They embraced, the bond between them stronger than ever. "You are not forsaken," Iolos whispered. "Whatever comes, gods and men will know how you suffered for love, not for power." Hercules touched his nephew's cheek tenderly. "Guard my mother. Tell her I will return." With the dawn blazing gold behind him, Hercules hefted his club and strode north toward Nemea. Resolve hardening like iron in the forge. Around him, rumors swirled of a lion with a hide-like stone, of a king jealous and afraid, of gods who watched not with malice, but in hope that a man, even half divine, could find his way through suffering into legend. No one knew how the story would end. Not Eurystheus, clutching his throne, nor the whispers at court, certainly not Hercules himself. But already the wheels of fate had turned, and in the shadows the gods waited, their immortal schemes entwined with the uncertain steps of one haunted mortal man. Chapter 5. The Nemean Lion. Hercules left the safety of Tiryns behind, heading toward the haunted lands of Nemea. The road cut through dark woods where birds did not sing, and even the bravest travelers hurried at dusk. Everyone whispered of the monster lurking nearby, a lion born of the gods, with a hide no blade nor arrow could pierce. It had destroyed entire villages, and its bellow sent terror rippling through the hills. Hercules found the terrified survivors huddled behind barricaded doors. He spoke gently to a trembling child. "Stay close to your mother. I'll face the beast." Some wept, some doubted. All watched in silence as he marched alone into the wilderness. Clouds gathered as Hercules reached a ravine near Nemea. Prints twice the size of a man's hand pressed into the mud. Bones of cattle and men lay scattered. All at once, a growl rumbled through the gloom. The lion emerged, a massive golden form, eyes glowing amber, mane bristling like burning coals. For a heartbeat, even Hercules marveled at its power, a force of nature invulnerable to all weapons. He knocked an arrow, letting it fly. The shaft shattered on the lion's shoulder without even ruffling fur. Another arrow, the same result. The beast roared, shaking the earth, and charged with unnatural speed. A lesser man would have fled, but Hercules waited, calm and deliberate. As the lion leaped, claws like knives ready to rip, Hercules swung his club with all his might. The wood splintered on the creature's head, but the blow slowed it just enough for him to leap atop the beast. They tumbled into the dirt, the lion thrashing wildly. Hercules remembered the oracle's words, "Not by blade, nor by arrow." So he wrapped his mighty arms around the lion's neck, locking his hands beneath its mane. The struggle was as fierce as any in legend, man and a monster, rolling through dust and blood, neither yielding an inch. At last, after agonizing moments, the lion fell still. Its last breath stirred the dust, then faded. Hercules did not gloat. He waited until he was sure the torment was over. Chest heaving, he knelt by the beast, speaking a soft prayer to honor a worthy foe. But the task was not yet complete. With no blade able to cut the hide, Hercules used the lion's own claws to skin it, a gruesome, clever deed. He draped the pelt over his shoulders, its head resting atop his own in grim triumph. Now he was armored in the invulnerable cloak of the very monster he had vanquished. When Hercules returned to Nemea, the people emerged from their fear, joy breaking the spell that had hung over them for so long. Songs rang out, children danced, and war-weary men cheered for their savior. But Hercules searched for no glory. This was not heroism, he told them. It was necessary. Let the land heal. Carrying the lion's skin as proof, Hercules walked back to At the city gates, he waited, as ordered by The sight of the huge peltand, the blood on Hercules' arms, sent a wave of panic through the palace. Eurystheus himself trembled so greatly at the sight that he refused ever again to see Hercules in person. From then on, he would pass orders through messengers or from behind locked doors. The first labor was done, but as Hercules rested, he knew the trials had only begun. Hera watched from Olympus, her heart unsoftened and her vengeance undimmed. And somewhere in the hills, other monsters stirred, waiting for the hero who would soon come for them. Chapter 6. The Lernaean Hydra. No sooner had Hercules completed the first labor than the next appeared before him like a fresh shadow. Eurystheus, emboldened by the hero's triumph, but also more fearful, sent forth a trembling herald. Go now to the marshes of Lerna. There dwells the Hydra, a beast with many venomous heads. Slay it, and let its power trouble the land no more. The people of the region shuddered at even the name of the Hydra. Its poison tainted the rivers, killing animals and making the air itself dangerous to breathe. Most terrifying of all, when one of its heads was cut off, 2 more would grow in its place. Some whispered there were 9, others said even more. Despite warnings, Hercules journeyed to the swamps with only his nephew Iolaus and his own courage as companions. Mist hung thick, the reeds whispering with every breath of foul wind. Even at a distance, the monster's presence could be felt, a slow, choking dread that pressed upon the world. At the heart of the swamp, they found the Hydra, a massive, coiling serpent, its many heads weaving and hissing. Each head held a maw lined with fangs dripping with deadly venom. One even glowed with a sickly green fire. The beast attacked with blinding speed, heads striking in every direction. Hercules waded into battle. His sword flashed, severing a head only to see, with horror, 2 more sprout in its place, writhing and shrieking. Again and again, he struck, but each victory brought greater peril. The Hydra's blood burned the ground, a scent of rot filling the air. He called to Iolaus, who waited at a safe distance. Bring the torch. Hercules' voice rang out over the chaos. Iolaus hurried, lighting a brand. As Hercules chopped off another head, Iolaus pressed the flaming torch to the wound. The flesh sizzled, preventing any more heads from growing back. One by one, they fought, Hercules striking, Iolaus burning, until at last, only the indestructible center head remained vicious, ancient, and snarling. Summoning all his strength, Hercules grasped it with both hands and forced it from the Hydra's neck, casting it deep beneath a boulder where it would trouble the world no more. Exhausted but triumphant, the heroes gathered the beast's black, poisonous blood and dipped their arrows in it, a grim tool for battles to come. The labor complete, Hercules returned to Tiryns, bearing news of another monster conquered. Eurystheus greeted the victory with renewed fear. He dared not face Hercules. Instead, he ordered his heralds to announce the next labor immediately, hoping somehow to rid himself of this powerful, terrifying cousin. But Hercules, though battered and weary, now drew resilience from a new source, not the cheers of crowds, but the bond with his loyal nephew and the knowledge that evil could be overcome through courage. and cunning rather than brute strength alone. Hera watched from her throne on Olympus, her anger simmering. Each victory brought Hercules closer to redemption, but she vowed that the next task would be even more impossible. And deep in the haunted lands of Greece, word spread. The hero had bested the unkillable perhaps. Some dared to dream. Hope had returned. Chapter 7. The Ceryneian Hind. No sooner had Hercules returned from Lerna, stained with victory and the dark blood of the Hydra, than he was summoned again by King Eurystheus. The king's voice was thin with envy and anxiety. Your next task, Hercules, is to capture alive the Ceryneian Hinda, sacred deer with golden antlers and bronze hooves. It outruns arrow and man alike, and is beloved by the goddess Artemis herself. Bring the hind to me unharmed. The challenge was daunting, not for its danger, but for its subtlety. To kill the hind, or injure it, would incur the immortal wrath of Artemis, yet to catch it seemed impossible. The creature was a spirit of the wild, haunting the forests and high hills of Cerynea, fleet as wind and clever as any god. Armed only with patience, Hercules set out. He tracked faint hoofprints through misty valleys and moonlit woods. Sometimes he glimpsed the hind in the distance, a flash of golden light weaving among the trees, vanishing quicker than thought. Every night he camped under the stars, never losing faith, though months passed in lonely pursuit. Seasons changed. Hercules followed the hind through sweltering summers and biting snows, across mountains and river crossings. The people he met offered help and kindness, sensing the nobility in his quest. They told legends of the Hinda creature that could cure the sick and never grew old, a living symbol of hope. At last, on a dawn veiled in golden mist, Hercules found the hind, pausing at a crystal-clear spring. He approached slowly, his every movement gentle and deliberate. Remembering his lessons from Chiron, he offered prayers to Artemis and spoke softly to the deer, promising no harm would come. When the hind at last ran, Hercules followed for a final chase, a breathless race through the forest that ended with his arms encircling the exhausted creature, holding it fast but tender, not a single hair harmed. At that moment the forest stilled, and Artemis herself appeared, radiant and terrible, bow in hand. "Why do you chase my beloved deer?" she demanded, eyes burning with divine power. Hercules did not beg or boast. He bowed low and explained his duty not for glory, but for penance and redemption. Moved by his humility and truth, Artemis allowed him to bring the hind back to Tiryns, so long as it remained unharmed, and was soon set free. Hercules led the sacred hind into Tiryns, to the astonishment of all. The golden-antlered creature, so serene and gentle, seemed a vision sent from the gods. Even King Eurystheus was struck dumb by its beauty and by Hercules' success where magic and might had failed. True to his word, Hercules released the hind to the wilds, a sign that even a man burdened with guilt could honor the will of the gods. The people whispered that his heart had changed as much as his fate. And so, Hercules prepared for his next challenge, aware that brute force would not win every victory. Sometimes, only respect for the divine and patience could open a path through the impossible. Chapter 8. The Erymanthian Boar. Sao Ketha Khan, Hu, Syac, Ca, Artemis, Hercules, Tiryns, Nan T, HTP, Theo, Tvua, Eurystheus, Nguy Phi, Bt San Lin, Ring Erymanthos, Mong Vy, Chota, Khan, Lin Ring Kun, Lgorc Kin, KHP, ANH Aram, SCM, NHD, DILP LNGV CAP NAN NAG Kim Kang UNHNG NGI BYSNBMNG Key CHLIG NVTDY Hercules Lan Hu Wang Viti Qua Nung Ku Ring Fach Skung Bang Qua Thung Lung Berlin Ring Tang DN Long NIYDNG Ra CHNG TR Con Run RY Trong MIM Ki Ang Ting G GMG Von Lei T Ring So GING Hercules M NGIB NC IB Unsila Nan MA Foloshian Trit N The N SNG Trong MT Hang VIN Folus MI Hercules Me RNG RU VHAN VLNRNG BLNRNG BN Ta SCCMDN Hung DNNNG Lock T NNNG VI Trong BATC UNH UNM UNMNG Tikthe MT Quack CIV Ench Ra Zoe Quan Ru CA SS Hun Luan Kine Nung VA Nan MA BN Chi Folus CHNG Maybo Thong BY MT Muit C Hydra Tite Hercules Keanu Sibova Bun Kinun K9 Yi Lua Hercules Kao Bun Chan CCT Bun Ha S Dang Fan Thong Lan Unlin TLI TP Theo Hercules DCL Un H PH 2T TRICT Da Jia Cianch Ring Trang Im Shumi Tinglin Ring Rang Vang Con Hai Unra UnHMT Makun Els Goi MTG Ngu Nan Song Jia Hung 2IT Bentung Ki Al B Hercules KHNG V Mav VMD SCNGI VMV Thong Tha DSN Con Lin Ring MT Dukan Viet Hung Han Lao T Ana Ner RILICT CH TSN VT NG Trong MTCUC VTL So Hercules CHT Benang Sui Thong Da Bor NHENGSC Con Lin Ring Jun VNC NG Ku Un Thun D Un U Kin HITRCKY MT Con VHLN Hun C Gi Nan Cam Zion C Vio Eurystheus SHITR UNNG Then Kine MGIG Gi Kuji Theme Li Havivi Bun C Hercules CX Nan TVV Lin Ring TH Ring Sao Turv Lay SS Can Bunin Cho T Nyan MT Nhing Hercules Cha The Gi Gigi BY Nung Neum VN Tip Theo CH Sem Gaiach C. Chapter 9 The Augean Stables. Not long after his feat with the Erymanthian boar, King Eurystheus issued yet another command. Hercules, you must clean out the stables of King Augeas of Elis in a single day. The stables of King Augeas had not been cleaned for 30 years, housing thousands of cattle. The stench spread across the entire region, and no one dared defend the honor of Elis against such filth and shame. Augeas himself, famous for his stinginess and pride, mocked Hercules and declared, "If you succeed, I'll give you 1/10 of my herd." Thinking this task would be a humiliation, Augeas was sure Hercules would fail. But Hercules remained undaunted. When Hercules arrived, he surveyed the dreadful sight, hills of dung piled high, and clouds of flies swirling in the air. The townspeople shook their heads in despair, believing this job was harder than slaying monsters. Instead of simply charging in, Hercules decided to use his wits, not just brute strength. Observing two great rivers, the Alpheus and the Peneus flowing near the pastures, Hercules devised a clever plan. With his extraordinary power, he broke down a section of the stable wall and dug a wide trench. Using a pickaxe, he redirected the water of both rivers to surge straight through the filthy stables. In just a few hours, the rushing water swept away all the dirt, dung, and thick grime. The land became lush and clean again, and the livestock happily grazed on fresh grass. The townspeople were amazed, cheering both Hercules' strength and his extraordinary intelligence. But when Hercules came to claim his reward, Augeas broke his promise, refusing to pay and demanding Hercules leave Ilion. Although angry, Hercules ignored the dispute. He had completed his mission. When he returned to report to King Eurystheus, the king was speechless. From then on, he feared not only Hercules' strength, but also his cleverness. The labors grew more outrageous and difficult, but Hercules realized, sometimes the greatest victory comes from changing your environment and adapting, not just through brute force. The image of the river rushing through the stables would forever remind everyone that even the most ordinary challenge can reveal true wisdom. Chapter 10. The Stymphalian Birds. After his success with the Augean stables, Hercules hoped he could finally rest, but King Eurystheus quickly assigned him another dangerous task. You must destroy the Stymphalian birds, monstrous creatures with bronze feathers, beaks, and claws. They dwell in the marshes of Stymphalos, spreading death throughout Arcadia, ruining crops and attacking the people. Hercules set out for the marshlands, where thick fog blanketed the sky. The water was black and murky, and tall reeds grew wild. Eerie screeches echoed above him, then hundreds of metal wings sliced through the air. The birds shook their bronze feathers, shooting them like arrows, attacking anyone who dared approach. Realizing he was no match for their great numbers and natural weapons, Hercules sought another solution. He remembered the guidance of the goddess Athena. Athena appeared and gave Hercules special symbols to large bronze plates. When struck together, they would make an ear-splitting noise, loud enough to shake the entire marsh. Climbing a hill, Hercules struck the symbols with all his might. The echo roared across the wetlands. The birds, terrified, burst from their hiding places in confusion, swarming into the sky. At that moment, Hercules drew his bow and, using arrows dipped in the Hydra's poisonous blood, shot down every monster bird that dared swoop low. Sparks flew as bronze blood spattered, and the birds' metal feathers struck the trees, creating bursts of red light. Most of the flock quickly fled Arcadia, vanishing far away. For the first time in years, the marsh became silent. The village of Stymphalos rejoiced. Children no longer cried at night. They brought Hercules gifts of bread and honey, promising that their crops would surely thrive again. Hercules simply smiled, saying that the true credit belonged to those who could work together and listen to the wisdom of the gods. He returned to Tiryns to report his achievement. King Eurystheus, now even more afraid of Hercules' ingenuity and courage, began plotting even harder tasks. As for Hercules, he realized he was changing. He was no longer just a warrior, but had become a symbol of hope and renewal for the people of the land. Chapter 11. The Cretan Bull. King Eurystheus grew more and more fearful of Hercules' success. Again, he ordered, "Travel to the island of Crete and capture alive the fierce white bulla gift from the god Poseidon. Bring it back to Tiryns for me." This bull was originally sent by Poseidon to the shores of Crete to prove King Menes's divine right to rule. But when Minos broke his promise to the god, Poseidon drove the beast mad. The bull tore up fields, trampled crops, and killed anything that stood in its way. Many brave hunters had tried and failed against its raging strength. Hercules sailed across the Aegean Sea to Crete, where villagers told tales of the bullet's hide, brilliant white as clouds, its eyes glowing red like burning coals, and its great horns curled like crashing waves. King Minos agreed to let Hercules try to catch it, confident that the mighty beast couldn't be subdued. Tracking the bull's trail, Hercules bravely approached. He cleverly dodged its thundering charges and blasts of breath, as wild as any storm. Without using deadly weapons, Hercules patiently guided the bull down to the white sand beach, waiting as the powerful creature tired under the hot sun. Seizing his moment, Hercules leaped onto the bull's back, seized its enormous horns, and with all his strength, wrestled the beast down into the sand. The struggle raged between man and bull, while all the island seemed to hold its breath and watch. At last, Hercules managed to bind the creature tightly with enchanted rope. Exhausted and defeated, the bull's rage faded as it panted, no longer able to harm. Hercules brought the creature across the sea back to people and courtiers were amazed by his calmness and bravery. Even Eurystheus kept his distance, refusing to go near the blazing white bull, and ordered it released into the open plain. Strangely enough, the bull continued its rampage across the land, later becoming the terror of Marathon, earning its place in later Greek legends. As Hercules watched the mighty beast wander away, he understood not all power can be conquered forever, and sometimes mercy and release are also forms of true courage. Another challenge was complete, and most comforting of all, the day he could finally return home was now closer than ever. Chapter 12: The Mares of Diomedes. Hercules returned from Crete, hoping for a brief respite, but King Eurystheus wasted no time. "Now, your next labor. Bring me the mares of Diomedes, the man-eating horses of Thrace. Tame them, or at least return with proof that you have faced their terror." These mares were not ordinary steeds, they were monstrous, wild, and cruel, owned by Diomedes, king of the beasts. Diomedes himself was as savage as his horses, feeding strangers and enemies alike to the beasts to satisfy their unnatural hunger. Hercules marched north, accompanied by a few loyal friends. As he approached the wind-swept plains of Thrace, he found the land haunted by dread fields, deserted, villagers gone, the silence broken only by the distant, echoing shrieks of horses and the clatter of their iron-shod hooves. He crept at night to the stables, hidden among cliffs at the edge of the sea. The mares glared at him with glowing, bloodshot eyes, manes tangled like storm clouds. They stomped, pawed, and bit at one another, so wild that even chained, they seemed to threaten the world itself. Diomedes and his armed guards soon arrived, swords drawn. Without hesitation, Hercules fought bravely, outmatching the king's soldiers in single combat. In the chaos, he caught Diomedes himself, and, using the tyrant's own brutal methods, fed him to his monstrous mares. In a dark twist of fate, the beasts that had feasted on so many innocent lives were at last fed their master. Something changed in the mares after this. Their rage abated, their eyes dimmed, and they grew quiet, even docile. Hercules realized their madness had been stoked by cruelty and unnatural sustenance. Hercules gathered the now tamed mares and drove them from Thrace toward Tiryns. Wading rivers and skirting mountain passes, ever wary, lest the beasts relapse into their old ways. Along the journey, stories of Hercules' compassion spread. He was not just a slayer of monsters, but a redeemer, able to see the suffering that lay beneath fury. Upon arrival in Tiryns, King Eurystheus recoiled from the sight of the infamous mares, demanding they be released far away. Some say the mares roamed free at the foot of Mount Olympus, others that they were dedicated to the gods. One thing was certain, the cursed cycle of their violence was broken. Hercules had again proven that brute strength was not always the answer. Sometimes, a monster is created not by nature, but by the cruelty of men. And the greatest hero is the one who ends that cruelty. Chapter 13, The Belt of Hippolyta. Word of Hercules' latest exploits spread across all of Greece as he prepared for his next labor. King Eurystheus, sensing that strength and cunning had not been enough to stop the hero, chose a different kind of challenge. Bring me the famed belt of Hippolyta, queen of the Amazons, a gift from Ares himself, symbol of their strength and authority. The Amazons were legendary female warriors of unmatched skill and discipline, living far away by the Black Sea. Their queen Hippolyta was renowned for her courage and sense of justice. The belt was not just a treasure, but a symbol of her rule. Many armies had failed to claim it. Setting sail with an armed crew, Hercules braved tumultuous seas and hostile shores to reach the city of the Amazons. When they arrived, they were met not with swords, but with curiosity. Hippolyta herself rode out, tall and strong, in bronze armor, and with a patient, steady gaze. Hercules bowed respectfully and explained his quest, leaving aside deceit or threats. Amazed by his honesty and reputation, Hippolyta welcomed him and his men as guests. Over feasts and fires, Hercules and the Amazon queen exchanged tales of valor. She admired his sense of honor and understood his labor was not for greed but for redemption. Moved by his candor, Hippolyta agreed to give the belt as a token of respect between warriors. But the goddess Hera, still seeking to thwart Hercules, disguised herself as an Amazon and spread rumors that Hercules planned to attack and enslave the Amazon nation. Suspicion and anger grew among the warriors. Their ranks armed themselves, ready to protect their queen. Battle erupted before Hercules could explain. Spears and arrows darkened the sky, bronze shields clashed, and Hercules found himself surrounded by fierce enemies. With great reluctance, he fought back, wounding but not killing, always seeking to avoid unnecessary bloodshed. In the chaos, Hippolyta herself confronted Hercules. Rather than striking, she called for peace, realizing the misunderstanding. Hera's deception was revealed, and the fighting stopped. Bruised and dismayed, the Amazons laid down their weapons. In an act of honor, Hippolyta gave Hercules the belt willingly, and the two saluted each other as equals. Hercules sailed home, burdened not just with the prize, but the lesson that trust and communication matter as much as strength. Returning to Tiryns, the hero presented the belt to Eurystheus, who has always looked more jealous than grateful. But for Hercules, the labor was a reminder. True courage is as much about winning respect as it is about winning the day. Chapter 14, The Cattle of Geryon. King Eurystheus had grown desperate. Hercules, unbroken by each impossible task, stood as living proof that no force, divine or mortal, could bring him low. So the king demanded something farther and stranger than ever. Bring me the cattle of Geryon, the monster of Erythea, at the edge of the world. Erythea was a sun-baked island in the far west, said to lie where the day ends. There, Geryon, a giant, with 3 bodies and 6 arms, kept a herd of magnificent red cattle, guarded by Orthrus, a 2-headed hound, and Everytion, a fierce giant herdsman. Hercules set out on a journey longer than any before, through scorching deserts, across the Libyan sands, and past the dark river Oceanus itself. In his travels, he struck his staff upon 2 mountain peaks to mark his passage. These became the famous Pillars of Hercules at the Strait of Gibraltar. Reaching Erythea, Hercules first battled Orthrus. The monstrous beast lunged with dual snapping jaws, but with a single, crushing blow of his club, Hercules defeated the hound. The herdsman, Everytion, charged, wielding a spear as massive as a tree. Hercules dodged and felled the giant, clearing the way to the cattle. But now, Geryon himself appeared, a fearsome presence, 3 faces grimacing, 6 mighty arms bearing sword and shield. The earth shook as he strode forth, blazing with rage. They clashed beneath the shimmering sun, blows echoing across the desolate island. Geryon fought furiously, attacking from every direction at once. But Hercules, driven by purpose, wielded his bow and arrows dipped in Hydra's venom. A single, well-aimed shot pierced all 3 bodies. The giant roared, then collapsed, defeated. Hercules gathered the red cattle and began the long trek home, but the journey was far from simple. Every mountain pass and river crossing brought new challenges. Hera, still vengeful, sent gadflies to sting the cattle and scatter them across the wilds. For days, Hercules chased and recovered them, never giving in to frustration. Even as he neared Greece, the sun blazed hot and tempers flared. But Hercules weathered every hardship, bribing giants, bartering with mortals, outwitting bandits. His single-minded determination impressed those he passed, and whispers of his endurance spread to every village and city. When, at last, Hercules led the gleaming cattle into Tiryns, dazzled townsfolk ran to stare. Eurystheus, by now more terrified than ever, chose not to keep the animals' word, had it they smelled of distant doom. Instead, he dedicated the cattle to Hera, who had tried so hard to hinder their journey. This labor, more than any before, taught Hercules that courage was not merely facing monsters, but overcoming every obstacle, large or small, in pursuit of what was right. He had traveled to the ends of the world and back, and yet, still, 2 tasks remained. Chapter 15, The Apples of the Hesperides. With the cattle of Geryon safely delivered, Hercules had only 2 labors left. King Eurystheus, at a loss for new torments, assigned a challenge born from legend. Bring me the golden apples from the garden of the Hesperides, the apples regarded as the marriage gift of the gods themselves. These apples grew in a secret orchard at the very western edge of the world, guarded not only by the 3 Hesperides nymphs, but also by the deadly 100-headed serpent, laden. The apple's golden skin was said to grant immortality and infinite wisdom. No mortal had ever set foot in that sacred garden. Hercules began his search with no map, only fragments of rumor. He wandered from land to land, questioning wise men and even sea nymphs. His first clue came from the Titan Prometheus. Imprisoned on a Caucasus mountain and tormented by an eagle eating his liver each day. Filled with compassion, Hercules slew the eagle and released Prometheus, who rewarded him with a vital piece of advice. Do not take the apples yourself. Seek out the Titan Atlas, who holds up the vault of the sky. Only he can approach the Hesperides. Hercules pressed on until he found Atlas, his broad back bent under the unimaginable burden of the heavens. Atlas's strength had not failed. but he yearned for even a moment of relief. Hercules proposed a bargain. "Lend me your help to fetch the apples, and I shall bear the sky for you while you are gone." A look of hope flickered across Atlas's weary face. Carefully, Hercules shouldered the immense weight of the heavens, feeling the crushing burden thrumming through his muscles and bones. Atlas strode away, crossing the edge of the world to the garden, where he easily charmed Ladon and the Hesperides, being their kin. In time, he returned holding 3 apples, shining like miniature suns, their perfume intoxicating. Yet Atlas, feeling freedom for the first time in eons, hesitated. "Let me take the apples to Eurystheus myself," he said, "and you will remain here in my place." Hercules, quick-witted as ever, pretended to consider. "All I ask is that you hold the sky for a moment while I pad my shoulders with my lion's skin. Then you may be free again." Atlas consented, laughing at the simple request. Then, as soon as he took back the weight of the sky, Hercules gathered the apples and thanked him, swiftly departing before the Titan could protest. On returning to Tiryns, apples in hand, Hercules presented them to the astonished king Eurystheus. Hera, who cherished the apples and hated the thought of a mortal possessing godly gifts, sent Athena to return them to their rightful place. The golden apples vanished back to the garden, for their true home was never among mortals. Hercules learned, in this labor more than any other, that strength alone could not win every prize. Wisdom, compassion, and the willingness to trust and outwit others were just as important in facing the world's greatest challenges. Only one labor remained before his freedom. Chapter 16. Cerberus, the final labor. After many years and countless miles, Hercules stood at the threshold of his final labor. King Eurystheus, desperate to end the legend, invoked his most impossible command: "Bring me Cerberus, the ferocious 3-headed hound that guards the gates of the underworld itself. Bring him to me alive." No mortal had ever descended into Hades and returned. The underworld was a realm of shadows, ruled by stern Hades and inhabited by lost souls. Hercules, knowing this would be his greatest test, prepared with resolve. He traveled to Eleusis to be initiated into the mysteries and sacred rites, so that the gods of the underworld might show mercy. When he was ready, Hercules made his way to the entrance of Hades, guided by the goddess Athena and the god Hermes. At the gates, he passed the spirits of the dead, the icy river Styx, and the judges of souls. Even the shades of famous heroes paused, whispering in awe at the presence of the living Hercules. Within the misty, silent realm, Hercules found Hades and Persephone seated on their black-throned dais. He approached with deepest respect and explained his mission, promising to subdue Cerberus only with his own hands, without resorting to weapons. Hades, dark-eyed and proper, agreed on one condition: "You may take Cerberus, if you can overpower him with nothing but your own strength, as no blade nor poison." So Hercules journeyed to the deepest cavern, where Cerberus prowled, the monstrous hound, with 3 snarling heads, a mane writhing with venomous snakes, and a serpent's tail lashing in the darkness. Eyes gleaming red, each head bared its enormous fangs, and the ear-splitting, triple howl shook the very ground. Undaunted, Hercules wrapped his arms around the beast. Man and monster struggled, claws raking and teeth snapping, but Hercules' grip of iron held fast. He endured the spray of corrosive drool and stinging bites from serpent mane and tail. Eventually, Cerberus, astounded by such strength and endurance, yielded. The monstrous dog quieted, and with a tug on the many thick necks, Hercules guided him from the shadowy world, back up through the mists of Hades, into the light of day. As Hercules entered Tiryns, accompanied by the terrifying hound, people screamed and scattered, and even King Eurystheus shrieked, diving into a giant clay jar for safety. Satisfied, Hercules left Cerberus unharmed, returning the hound to his home beneath the earth. As agreed, his labors at last complete, Hercules stood free, the chains of penance and service broken. He had traveled from sky to sea, battled monsters, outwitted gods, and even conquered death itself. For his unshakable courage and strength, Hercules was not only revered as a hero, but honored as an immortal symbol of resilience, wit, and the hope of redemption.